Life moves fast, and so should the answers to your biggest questions. Welcome to Endo Batteries Quick Connect, your direct line to expert insights. Short, powerful, and right to the point. You send in the questions, I bring in the experts, and in just 5 minutes, you get the knowledge you need. No long episodes, no extra time needed. And just remember, expert opinions shared here are for general information and not for personalized medical advice. Always consult your provider for your case-specific guidance. Got a question? Send it in, and let's quickly get you the answers. I'm your host, Alana, and it's time to connect. Today, I'm excited to have Dr. Sadikah Behbehani, a double fellowship-trained OBGYN specializing in reproductive endocrinology and infertility, as well as minimally invasive gynecological surgery. Dr. Behbehani completed a second fellowship at the prestigious Mayo Clinic, where she mastered complex pelvic surgery using both laparoscopy and robotics. As an associate professor at the University of California, Riverside School of Medicine, she is also deeply involved in medical research and publications. With her rare combination of training in surgery and infertility, Dr. Behbehani is uniquely equipped to treat complex gynecologic conditions such as endometriosis and fibroids that affect fertility. Let's jump in and be empowered with knowledge. There tends to be a lot of crossover between endometriosis and PCOS. Can you tell us a little bit more about the PCOS piece of it and what it is, how it kind of responds in the body, and just give us that overview?
Yes, I'm glad that you bring this up because this is a question we get asked often in clinical practice is how are endometriosis and PCOS related? We have to remember that endometriosis occurs in about 15% of the population. So not looking at pelvic pain or fertility patients, just in the general population, about 15% of women will have endometriosis. And 5 to 15% of the population will have PCOS. So they may not necessarily be caused by the same cause like in utero or the same manifestation that created the disease, but because they are both prevalent and common, it is definitely possible for women to have both endometriosis and PCOS. So I often get asked, is the endo causing PCOS? Is the PCOS causing endo? No, there are no studies to show that one causes the other. It's just because they're both prevalent, it is absolutely possible for both diseases to co-occur in someone. Mm-hmm. Now, what is PCOS? You asked me what PCOS was. PCOS, for those of you who don't know, stands for Polycystic Ovary Syndrome. And it is often misdiagnosed. So a large proportion of women will come see me and say, oh, well, my doctor diagnosed me with PCOS 5, 10, 15 years ago. The first question I ask them is, how was the diagnosis established? And most of the time, they're not able to provide the evidence or the results that led to the diagnosis of PCOS. So PCOS is often misdiagnosed and sometimes is overdiagnosed. But when we are correctly diagnosing PCOS, we diagnose it based on a criteria called the Rotterdam criteria. So that's the scientific way of diagnosing PCOS. What the Rotterdam criteria looks at is to see if women have irregular periods or no periods. So that's one of the criteria. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is elevated male-type hormones called androgens, testosterone, DHEA, 17-hydroxyprogesterone. Those fall in the category of androgens. Or clinical findings of elevated androgens, like having increased facial hair, acne, sometimes male pattern baldness. Those are all called clinical findings of elevated androgens or elevated male-type hormones. And then number 3 is the appearance of polycystic ovaries on ultrasound. So you need 2 out of those 3 things to be diagnosed with PCOS. And the reason why this is important is because many women will have an ultrasound to show multiple follicles or cysts on their ovaries and be automatically told that they have PCOS. You cannot diagnose PCOS based on just one of the 3 things. You cannot just have polycystic appearing ovaries and have PCOS. You need to have polycystic appearing ovaries plus one of the other 2 things on the criteria, which are either irregular periods or absent periods, or clinical or lab findings of elevated androgens. So you need 2 out of 3 to diagnose PCOS. And then you can't be really young and diagnose PCOS. You need to wait a certain number of years after you start your period. So you can't have a 15-year-old who started her periods 2 years ago see a GYN and be told she has PCOS. She's too young to be diagnosed with PCOS. You need at least 6 to 8 years of regular menstrual cycles. So from the start of the first period, we wait 6 to 8 years before you reevaluate the situation to see if they have PCOS or not. Because it takes this long for the brain to stimulate the ovaries to produce hormones on a regular basis. So it's very common for girls in the first 6 to 8 years of starting a period to have irregular periods, elevated androgens, and polycystic appearing ovaries on ultrasound. But they will not have PCOS if you just give them time to regulate their own hormones. So that's another important thing to remember is you need to give your body time to adjust to having periods before you're able to diagnose PCOS.
To hear more about the connection of endometriosis and PCOS from Dr. Behbehani, check out episode 91. That's a wrap for this Quick Connect. I hope today's insights helped you move forward with more clarity and confidence. Do you have more questions? Keep them coming. Send them in, and I'll bring you the expert answers. You can send them in by using the link in the top of the description of this podcast episode or by emailing contact@endobattery.com or visiting the endobattery.com contact page. Until next time, keep feeling empowered through knowledge.